Hi, my name is Carina Ockedahl. I'm the managing editor of Canadian Auto Dealer, and I'm here with Shelly Scott from PBS Systems. Before we jump into that conversation, it's worth mentioning that the NADA show this year has gone to a virtual platform due to COVID-19. So, Shelly, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your experience with the show. Has it met your expectations? Are you seeing a lot of dealers, Canadian dealers? What's the situation?
The show's been great. The platform has been absolutely exceptional so far. Our sales and marketing teams actually were able to get into the platform a few days early, and so they've actually been working with dealers on both sides of the border on new opportunities for days even before the trade show started. And it's really exciting because this ultimately is just the next adaptation of the NADA trade show, and I really hope going forward that we can hold on to some of these tools and some of these online platforms, even when we go back to a physical one down the road.
And so, what are some of the questions that dealers are coming to you with at your virtual booth? Some of the challenges in terms of what they're dealing with? I mean, you mentioned some of them, but what's
Yeah.
on their mind these days?
There's really a couple of themes or topics that seem to be on the lips of dealers this year. The first one is definitely around some of the new technologies or new terminologies that are being marketed more in the industry this year than in the past. And I think, especially in Canada, PBS has become as much a technology educator as a technology provider. We talk with dealers every day about the emerging technologies and the different third-party companies and whether or not that'll integrate with the DMS or if there's something in the DMS that does a similar thing. And it's been really great for us to work with all sorts of dealers on both sides of the borders to figure out the best way to adapt these technologies into their businesses. The other big change, or the other big topic, I guess, this year is how the industry has changed over the last 12 to 18 months and kind of where we see ourselves and where we see the industry going in the future. I think the best way to answer that question is to look back and look at 12, maybe 18, 24 months ago. I think everybody knew they should do more retail virtually, but they didn't. And when times are good and cars are being sold and the shop is full, it's just not a priority, right? But then when COVID hit, it forced all of us to be experts very, very quickly. Now, fortunately for us, we were prepared for that, chat. Our software really is, I think, in a lot of instances ahead of where the market is. And ultimately, if you're a good software company, that's really where you want to be. Now, when COVID hit, I do believe a lot of companies, dealerships especially, they ended up right-sizing their business. Maybe they went down a little bit in staff, and then over the coming months, they started to rebuild themselves. But when they did that, they rebuilt themselves in a better way. And that's where we came in to work with our existing customers, especially on finding new ways to implement some more digital or virtual technology to help them kind of build their business back. So I'll give you an example. When you think of the different tools that a dealership uses, the CRM is a perfect example of a tool that can really make a difference in how dealers sell cars. So when a dealer moves from one business platform or one DMS into another, they of course are going to prioritize the business essentials. They're going to prioritize selling a car. They're going to prioritize booking appointments and servicing vehicles, paying their staff, financial statements, all of those business essentials. But what ends up becoming second place is all, in many cases, the reasons why they chose the vendor in the first place. So these are all of the extra items that can proactively make a difference in their business, like CRM. So in our business, CRM is basically a way to market and communicate with your customers as a result of a transaction or a campaign of some kind. Now, when COVID first hit, of course, we saw a bit of a lull in attendance of our training sessions, but in a typical CRM training session, you'd see maybe 40 or 50 people in there. Well, by mid-April, we saw 200 to 300 people sitting in on these CRM training sessions. So we caught on to that really quick, and what we ended up doing was literally quadrupling the number of training sessions. We pivoted a few key departments internally and started hosting even more of these training sessions on these features that were second priority during an original install that may have happened a year, 2, 3 years ago. Now, all of that has allowed dealers to adjust the software, the tools, the technology that they use, and that includes things like e-commerce. So we've had e-commerce for years, and a few dealers have absolutely latched onto it, and they've done a great job with it. But what we saw is in the last 12, 18 months, our dealers were starting to put their hand up and say, what do you have? What do you have? And we said, well, you have the ability to collect money through text messages, and you have the ability to have your vendors log in, look at their invoices, and pay for things online. And so it's been a lot of the deployment of the digital and the virtual software, which has gone really, really well for us.
In that case, do you have any advice or comments you'd like to leave dealers with for the NADA show?
My advice for anyone attending NADA this year, especially if they're going to spend some time in the virtual expo and the e-booths, is to definitely take the opportunity to engage with the vendors through the different networking and online chat rooms. Really dig deep into lots of how questions. How will this application be or this technology be deployed at my store? How adaptable is it to my business process? And also, where does the company see themselves a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road? Because the fact of the matter is, any technology that you see at NADA today is going to look entirely different a year from now. So it is so important that any investment that a dealer makes is a good culture fit as well as a good product fit today, but a good long-term culture fit, because ideally the best business relationships are ones that are built over time.
Great. Well, that's a great way to leave off this interview. And I'd like to say thanks for taking the time to do this. Have a great show. And I wish you, your family, and your team good health and safety during the pandemic.